Alright, well welcome to Chapter 9 or Module 9 where we're going to be doing some macros. So the first thing is we're on page 9-4 of the textbook if you're following along. And I've downloaded the start file, which is the ILEX 9-1 Excel file. Now the first thing you need to do whenever you're creating macros is to make sure that you have a macro enabled workbook created. So in this case, we're going to go File, Save As. We're going to change our type. Instead of Excel workbook, we want an Excel macro enabled workbook, which is the XLSM extension. And we're going to change the name to be ILEX 9 bonus, and we'll hit save. And are you sure? And in this case, yes. It's an old version I have in that location, so I've overwritten that file. And the other option that you may not have initially is you'll see a developer tab on the ribbon. If you don't see that, you need to go to File, Options at the bottom. We want to hit Customize Ribbon. And over on the right hand side, you'll see a section that says Developer. You want to make sure that is turned on. So if you do not see the Developer tab on your ribbon, go to File, Options, Customize Ribbon. Click the Developer checkbox, and we'll click OK. Then we'll click on the Developer tab, and in this case, let's go to Macro Security. And in order to write, record, and assign macros, we need to enable all macros. Okay, so we've actually have enable all macros set. So if you go to Macro Security, macro settings, you're probably sitting at disable macros without notifications or with notifications. For this exercise, make sure you turn it on. Okay, we'll click OK. And then we'll save our file. We've got it started, and we will continue. Alright, so at the very bottom of this status bar, and it might not quite be on my screen unfortunately, but the bottom section where the status bar, where we've used in the previous weeks, on the right hand side, the normal view, page break, preview, etc. On the left hand side now, there's going to be a little picture of an Excel file with a record button on top of it. If you hover over that, it'll say click to begin recording a new macro. So we will hit that button. And in this case, we want this macro to be called add total. So we're giving it the name add total. And where do we want to store it? It'll be in this workbook. You have the options to set up a personal macro workbook where you can save all your macros to use across various workbooks, but in our examples we're going to save this workbook. You also have the option to assign shortcut keys. So say you wanted to assign Control K to be that shortcut key for that macro. You could assign it in this process, or you could do it at a later time. We will skip that. We will go in this workbook. Type my name in the description just so you know it's me or you recording the description. We'll click OK. So now we're in record mode. So anytime you click, move things, highlight things, change fonts, etc., it's being recorded in the macro. So in this case, let's click on A9. We will type the word total. We'll click the enter button on the formula bar to assign that. We will click on B9. We want to go home. We want to click the auto sum that we've used in previous weeks. We will click the check mark, so it's adding the 4 quarters. And then if you go back down to your status bar, the box that we hit, click to start recording the macro. Now if you hover over it, it'll say stop recording, and we'll stop that. We'll save our workbook. Continuing on to page 9-8. Now let's highlight A9 and B9. We'll delete the contents of them. Just go back to the way it was. We'll click on A1 just to move out of that cell. Now if you click on the Developers tab, click the Macros button here in the top left hand corner. And now you've got a list of any macros that are created in this file. In this case, we want to highlight Add Total and click Run. And you'll see it puts the word total and the sum. Let's highlight these, delete them again. We'll click on A9, A1. We'll go to View on the far right hand side. So another way to look at the macros, we'll click Macros, Add Total. So you can access it through the Developer tab or the View Macros tab at this time. We'll click Run to add it back. We'll save our work and continue. So if you're following along in the textbook, we're on page 9-10 now. So the next part is we want to show you that you can edit a macro without having to re-record them from start. So let's click on the Developer tab. We'll click on the Macros button. We've got the Add Total highlighted, and in this case we want to click Edit. What that does is it pulls up a VBA, a Visual Basic for Applications window. So in this case, we want to drag the left edge. Okay, so I've maximized it, yes. And in this case where it says range A9 select and press enter, I want to go to the end, type comma with selection. Okay. And at the end of active cell, formula R1C1 total, we'll go here. Oops. I know what I did, sorry. I want to go like this with selection, so it's in a new line. I apologize. And at the end of the active selection, at total, we'll press enter to add a new line. We want to go period, horizontal. Horizontal alignment. So what we're doing is we're saying put those two lines together. That's what it means. So horizontal alignment equals XL right. If I can only type XL right and width. So it's applying that right alignment with the word total, and then end that with selection, and then continue to B9. In this case, we'll go File, Close and Return to Microsoft Excel. We'll highlight A and B9 again, hit Delete. Click on A1 to get out. We'll go to Macros, Add Total. We'll run again. And now you see the word total is right justified. We'll save our work. Next function we want to do is assign a macro to a button, page 9-12. So let's go to A9, B9. We'll delete that again. And in this case, we want to go Insert. And we want to go to Shapes. And we want a rectangle, so it's the first shape under the rectangles. We want to put this in cell A10, so we'll click on the top left hand side of A10, and we'll go down to A11 so it covers two cells. Okay. We'll type the word add total. Okay. So it's adding text in here. We'll go to home. And we want to center that, and middle alignment just to make it look a little nicer. Now, once you're done that, you'll right click on the button. And in this case, you have an option now because you have this as a macro enabled file to assign a macro. So we'll click Assign Macro. We'll click the Add Total, the one that we want to assign. We'll click OK. And then we'll click outside the button to save that function. We'll save this for a moment. And now you'll notice if you hover over it, your mouse changes from the solid white plus to a white hand, which means it's got a function built into it. So now, if you click it, it completes it. Delete that again, click anywhere, click it, it does the functions. I'll save our work. Alright, another function that we can do is we can assign macros to command buttons. So let's go to the Developer tab, and you'll see the Insert button here. Click the little drop down, and in this case we want the command button Activex controls. So you'll see Form Controls and Activex controls, and if you hover over it, it'll say it's the command button Activex control. So we'll click that one. Let's put this in A13, down to A14. Okay. We want to click the Properties button up in the Controls group. Okay, and we're on the alphabetical tab. We want the name box. We're going to click in the name box. We're going to call this quota button. Down to the caption button, we're going to double click in the right hand column. We're going to call this check quota. Okay. And in the back color box, we're going to click the drop down. We want to call it active title bar. So we need to find active title bar, which is, looks like this one, active title bar. Oh. There it is, active title bar. I knew it was a blue in there somewhere, so we scrolled up. And on the font, let's change the font to be Times New Roman. Click the little drop down. Actually, I should have just typed the letter. There it is, Times New Roman. Click OK. You'll see the font has changed. Okay, then we can close this properties window. Now here, while you're still highlighting this Activex control, we're going to hit View Code in the Controls group on the Developer tab. And now we can type the code. And here we want to assign it to the quota button, so if instead of general, we'll click quota button, and now we have the ability to type in what the code would be. The procedure code is on, let's see, it's figure 914 on page 915. So in this case we want to say if the total revenue is less than B3, then insert this quota. What this is the single quote at the front. It tells you that this is not part of the macro, it's just text to help explain it. Now with no quote at the front, we're actually creating the macro. So we're saying if the range bracket B9 is less than or equal to the range of, we're saying B3, okay, then range bracket B3, sorry, D3, select, so then go to that cell, cell formula, quota, so put that there, and we'll go text otherwise. I'm going to insert quota in cell D3. So then we'll say else D3 and select, so go to that cell, and in that active cell, formula equals net quota, and if range. What this is saying is go back to A1 once done. Okay, if you want to get fancy, you can type spaces just like it is on page 915. As long as the code is all the same, it will work without those extra spaces at the front. Okay, so we will go File, Close and Return, and now we've saved that macro assigned to the check quota button. Let's click on cell B3. We'll type 11,000. Press enter. That's check quota. Oh. Alright, I just forgot. I gotta click this design mode to turn it off in order to enable the macro. So we'll click that button, turn it off. And now when we click the check quota, it'll say missed quota in this example. And if we change B3 to be, say, 8,000, click check quota, it'll now say met quota. So it's telling me that the buttons are working. Alright, and the last function we want to show is how to assign a macro to a form control. So we want to go back to the Developer tab, and in this case we want to hit the Insert button, and we want a checkbox form control. So it's the button shape with the little tick mark, checkbox form control. And we want to click on A16. Okay, so we'll highlight A16. And then we want to change the text label. So if we click in here, we'll delete all of this and hit JCL. While you're still highlighting this checkbox, hit the Properties button up on the Developer tab. And in this case, we want to click the Control tab, which is already there. And we want to link it to cell E1. We will click OK. Then we will right-click on the macro, and in this case, we want to assign a macro. And we want to call the macro JCL. And in this case, we want to do new. And we want to enter the code in this subsection as per page 917 of the textbook. So in this case, it's if range, bracket E1, is equal to true, and range D3 equals net quota, then range D2, we'll go to that cell, and we'll make that in the active cell. We want to go equals annual bonus. Otherwise, if range E1 equals true and range D3 equals missed quota, then range will go to cell D2, and we'll say active cell in that D2 to say no annual bonus, and if, because it's a double if. Oops. So once we've done that, just to double check, we're looking at if E1 is true, and if D3 is met quota, then put annual bonus in D2. Otherwise, if it's true and missed quota, then put no annual bonus. Local file, close. So we'll go outside the box. In this case, we want to insert another checkbox. So go back up to Developer, Insert, and we want another checkbox form control. In this case, we want it in B16. Okay, we want to change the label to be contract. So we'll call this one contract. We'll hit Properties. And in this case, it's linked to cell E2. We'll click OK. We'll right-click this. We'll assign a macro. This macro, we're going to call it contract. New button. And in this case, we want the subcontract details from page 917, figure 9-17. So in this case, we have if range E2 equals true, then go to cell D2, and there you want to go active cell formula equals no annual bonus. There we go. So if E2 is true, then go to D2 and put no annual bonus. We'll go File, Close and Return. And in this case, we'll click outside of that button. Now if you go and click the JCL, you'll see it puts true. It puts annual bonus. Okay, we'll go to D2. Let's delete that for a second. And we'll delete E1 just just to go and do some more testing. With the contract, say no annual bonus, and it puts the results in E2. So now we don't want to actually see the true or false display, so we'll highlight E1 and E2. We'll go to Home. We'll format those cells as a custom. And this is one way if you want to never display text. If you do 3 semicolons, no matter whether it's positive, negative, text, 0, whatever it is, it won't display it. So rather than changing the color, you can do it through format cells and it just hides it. So if you highlight here, you can see that it's true, but it doesn't display anything. And that's it. That's all we got for this week. Just showing you how to use the different macros.